I think we will kick off. So welcome everybody. Thanks so much for taking the time to join. This is our first ever webinar at Purpl, our first live learning event. So I'm super excited. We've got a really tight schedule. So I'm going to talk for literally 1 to 2 minutes now, and then we're going to dive straight into one of the 3 mini trainings that we've got today. So just to tell you who I am, if you haven't met me already, I'm Joe, founder of a company called Purpl. We run an online training platform. It's a collection of currently over 25 courses. We cover all areas of talent acquisition, and we're constantly building new courses and adding it to our platform. We've got a number of core learning pillars. So we cover all areas of operational talent acquisition. So today we're focusing on sourcing, but we have loads of content from stakeholder management, data, employer brand. One of our core aims with Purpl is to turn recruiters into strategic talent partners. So today we're focusing on sourcing, and specifically we're looking at how to improve sourcing efficiency. I think this is a really timely topic with all new tools and automation that's coming out. Can maybe feel a little bit overwhelming on what you should even be doing right now. So this is the agenda. We're going to start off with automating research, which will be led by Mina. So this is going to be quite a techie, sort of hacky, practical 15 minutes, a bit of a review on the different tools that you can be using right now as well, and focusing on the research part of sourcing. We're then going to look at managing speed with candidate experience. So Mike's a big proponent of delivering a great candidate experience, and I think there's some considerations around more automation and tooling, like how do we maintain really high standards with candidate experience. And then we're rounding it off with Matt, who's going to be looking at productivity and time management. Matt is a bit of a sourcing wizard and will help you make more hires with less effort effectively. So excited for that one at the end. You might be wondering how the 4 of us came together. So every single presenter you're about to see is actually a course tutor on Purpl. So Mina has a course with us, Mike has a course with us, and Matt actually has 2 courses with us. And we will be giving our first ever promotion. We've never done a promotion at Purpl, but I'm going to save it till the end of the webinar because I want to dive in. So first, we are going to be looking at automating research with Mina. So I'm going to hand over to you, Mina, to take us away.
Thanks, Joe. So I'm going to share my screen with you. Can you all see it? Amazing. Hi, everyone. My name is Mina. I'm founder of Remi, which is an AI sourcing tool, and CEO at Start to Finish, a headhunting agency. I've been working now for 7 years in recruitment across the European market, and I've been in-house, in RPOs, in headhunting, and in each and every step of my career, it was always a very specific role I had to fill in. So most likely these roles that, especially in startups, I had to fill had a profound impact on the businesses. So ever since, it was very important to screen candidates based on their track record and make sure that those candidates have the right experience to bring the company to the next level. So that's why I chose for today a topic which is master your research. I wouldn't say it's so technical, just to set the expectations right here. I just want to make sure that once you're going and sourcing candidates, that the candidates that are provided in your sourcing tool are the ones that really fit and have the most properly also have the right experience with them. So let's start with an example here. If I'd be looking for a head of sales for my company, I'd be looking for someone who has the right industry specifics, referring here to product and customer. So I'd be looking for someone with the right business model, customer segment, the length of the sales cycle, and similar decision makers and other job specifics, right? And then I would be also looking for someone who is coming from an environment that I'm aiming to develop to in the near future. So I'd be looking at the growth record, the growth stages, investment record, and maybe even the culture. And the easiest way how you can make sure throughout your sourcing process that you find candidates that have those track records is to build company target lists and make sure that those companies are either past or current employers. And then you will most likely find candidates that have also the right experience that you are looking for. So that's what we're going to focus on today. The approach itself is pretty easy. So we're going to build a list. We put it into our sourcing tool. We save this list and build up on this list. Sounds easy, right? So to build your list first, I would like to ask you first, could you just drop in a message? Maybe are there any research tools or any tools that you're currently using to understand like what companies you can target, or is there any other tool that you're currently using, just to understand like what you guys are already having in your portfolio? Let me just check it. Yeah, Perplexity. Oh, LinkedIn Talent Insights. D-Room, amazing. So there are already some tools here. So, am I moving? Yeah. When it comes to the research tools, there are different options that you can pick. Depending on what you're looking at, we just went through different environmental fits and industry specifics, but there are also different research tools with different aims. For instance, if you're using Crunchbase, you will find a narrow industry like fintech or green tech, whatever. If you're using North Data, you can look for revenue records and even company setups. And I personally use Sales Navigator if I'm looking for headcount growth, for instance. So there are different ways or different tools that you can use based on the purpose. However, using research tools is really fun because it has like a lot of data, a lot of quality, but it can be also quite expensive. So another more budget-friendly solution would be to use an LLM. So some of you already dropped ChatGPT, also Perplexity, Gemini. Basically, what I'm using is Perplexity because it seems to be better for sourcing or research purposes. Although now I think ChatGPT Plus, with its newest features, should be on the same level. So if you're using the Plus version, you should be on the same as Perplexity. If you're not, then you might work with outdated data, which we don't want. So you can use either an LLM or research tools. Although I think the biggest difference between these two is that not only the price, but also when you're using an LLM, usually it searches the entire web, right? And some of this data is not really reliable because anyone could put anything in the web. So I would rather go with a research tool, which is core business, is to actually build these data records. And if for any reason you don't want to put this money on it, or you're not tight on budget, but still want the same results, there's also another more nasty way how you can go for it, which is using scrapers. So you can use Epify or Euler. I prefer Euler because it's quite easy to handle. You don't need to be very technical, whereas with Epify, I think you need some technical experience, but I think any one of us can handle that too. Just to get the right data. So depending on what you want to screen for, what your budget is, and also what your workflow is, you just need to choose which tooling you're taking here. And then you set the right filters, you look for keywords, and then build the list. Most of us are using ChatGPT already, right? Or any other LLM. So if that fits the best to your workflow and you don't want to add any more research tools in here, that's fair enough. I would maybe give you some hints on how you can prompt the best way. First, it's about the setup. So you have to make sure that you are actually looking in the entire web, because if you don't do that, you're screwed already. So make sure that if you're using Perplexity, you focus on searching the entire web, which is just a small button. It's very obvious. Or if you're using ChatGPT, you're using the Plus version. Once this is set up the right way, you're good to go. And we can start to actually prompt. And here it's very important to be as specific as you can be. I had really bad experience when I thought like, oh, my understanding of e-commerce or maybe director to consumer is just the same as the LLMs, because it's not. You usually get like not the same quality as if you would really break it down. So the best approach here is to be as specific, give examples for companies, and also specify why those examples are the right ones. So you don't end up with companies which kind of fit, but also don't. So if you want to make sure that the quality is the best, be really specific, maybe even give some must-haves and nice-to-haves examples, and also clarify why those examples are the right ones. And another way to also make sure that your quality is right is to limit your output to maximum 10 companies. So you build a prompt, it has to be, you have to put a bit of time in it, right? And then you have to make sure it's specified, and then you limit to the results to 10 companies, and then you ask for another 10, another 10, another 10. And then you will see that by time, the quality will get lower. But if you ask just at the beginning for 50 or 100 companies straightforward, the quality will never be the same. So the best approach is to limit your list maximum 10 and then ask for another. And usually you don't need to repeat the prompt, right? So just ask like, oh, 10 more, 10 more, 10 more. And yeah, usually you get by this like a list, but it's not really usable. So you have to make sure that you also ask for a table format. So if you're using Perplexity, you can't ask for files. So you have to use a table or CSV, and then you can just copy paste it into a sheet. Whereas if you're using ChatGPT, just ask for a file like, hey, please give it in a table format or an Excel file. You can download it and work from there. So that's basically how you prompt the best way. That being said, that's actually the whole flow. So either you have used a research tool, or you have used a scraper, or maybe a LLM, or you mix it up, whatever. But by now you should have a list. And now we're coming to the easiest part of it, which is putting the whole thing into your sourcing tool. So depending on what sourcing tool you use, I think most of them have Boolean searches. So some of you have also mentioned GPT or LinkedIn. What you can do for a quick search is to just ask your LLM or your a Boolean builder to build a string for you and then copy paste it in. However, I would not recommend to do this because it's quick and dirty, but you can actually here now build an asset. So imagine you're an in-house recruiter, and especially for in-house recruiter, this will be a game changer. You can now put company by company as a filter in. So you include these companies, and what you can do is just save the search. Sounds basic, but I've almost never met any other recruiters doing this. Just save the search based on the target audience that or target companies that you want. And then whenever you're looking for another role, like, I don't know, you're looking for product and then later for a techie or maybe for a marketing manager, you can just adjust the filters like the keywords and the title, and then you have already a list of candidates that have the right track record in there, right? So here you can build an asset and it's way more sustainable. And that's the best way to go. So save your search, make sure that you can use it for the future, and believe me, this will be so much more efficient. And yeah, that's it basically. So to wrap it up, all you need to do is to specify what exactly you need, the track record. You have to actually consider this already in a job intake, because the more specific the job intake is and you understand the patterns for the job, the better you can build the list. Once you have done that, you build the list. You use either a research tool, you use LLMs, or you use a scraper, whatever you prefer. And then either you go quick and dirty, or you just build your list on a sustainable way, which you can use for the future. So that's how you can improve your sourcing and make sure that the candidates have the right track record here. However, I have just one bonus tip here. If for any reason you want to skip all of that and you want to directly assess candidates that have the right track record, you can also join our testing group. Right now we are in a testing phase with Remi, so just hit me with or drop me a hi, and happy to get you into this group. But yeah, by now I'm ready actually for some questions.
Thank you, Mina. Any questions, please drop them in the chat. We had one that I think you then went on to cover, which was how do you prompt LLMs right to build your list? Do you have any examples? Any other tips or best practices for prompting?
Yeah, I can share afterwards maybe some of the examples that I've been using. But as said, so you have to be very specific. So you have to make sure that the LLM really understands what you want. And this is only possible if you give like positive and negative examples. Our headhunting agency is working mainly with e-commerce and D2C companies, where we have to specify like, hey, we are looking for someone who is producing, for instance, beauty products and should be based here. Because if we don't specify that, and it's a huge, like from an industry specific, it makes a huge difference if you have someone, an e-commerce which is producing the product and selling it directly to the consumer, whereas Zalando or another marketplace here. So you have to be very specific, and the more specific and the smaller the output list is, the better your results will be in the end.
Perfect. I think someone raised their hand, but there's too many people in the call for me to see that. So if you could just type your questions, that would be great. One from Alona. Data scraping is illegal in some countries. Have you dealt with any implications in this case?
Sorry, could you repeat?
Yeah, data scraping is illegal in some countries. Have you dealt with any implications in this case?
It's definitely a gray zone, so that's why it's nasty. So I would definitely either pay the tool itself, or if you really don't want to use scrapers as another result. But no, I haven't had any experiences yet here.
Okay, cool. Any more questions for Mina? Type them in the chat. Mina's going to stick around and answer them there, but we are going to move on to the next presenter, which is Mike.
Thanks, Mina. Thanks, Joe. Thanks everyone for joining and having me. Really appreciate it. I'm Mike Bradshaw. I'm the head of talent here at Pinpoint. I've been in TA and HR for about 15 years. The last 8 years focusing on Series A and pre-seed startups, build their talent functions from the ground up. At Pinpoint, sourcing candidates is a really, really critical part of our hiring strategy. About 40% of our new hires are coming from direct sourcing messages. We have about a 40% response rate to our messages across the platform. So I want to walk you through our strategies behind those numbers. I'll cover a few areas during the next few minutes, including how we define and align on a type candidate profile to improve the overall quality of your sourcing and make sure you're not duplicating efforts. I want to talk for a moment about adopting a skills-first hiring approach that focuses on capabilities rather than the sort of traditional qualifications that also help you find a broader talent pool. I'm talking about leveraging career trigger moments and concentric circles to expand your talent pool as well. And then how we specifically engage candidates with personalized and authentic outreach. I'll also touch on how we integrate DEI to our sourcing strategy to also help build a more diverse pipeline and therefore a more effective team. First thing is just defining a tight candidate profile. All of you on the call probably already do this already, but I think it's really important to talk through for a moment. Everything starts with that alignment with your hiring manager. So before you begin sourcing, that well-defined candidate profile is going to be critical, ensures that you are intentional and focused from day one when you're going out to the market and talking with candidates. Our process begins with a typical requisition and intake meeting with hiring managers. We're going to cover things like the responsibilities, the goal, the reason for the opening, qualifications, must-haves, nice-to-haves, and disqualifiers. Of course, we're going to identify that salary range, make sure the bonuses, all that is sort of laid out and clear that we can share with candidates up front. Our hiring process, one of the sort of key milestones of decision makers, we want candidates to have that when they look at a role and understand the sort of time commitment and skills assessment we're going to do up front. And then, of course, the thing like, is it remote? What are the sort of main obstacles and growth areas for this position? What's the impact? And then, of course, diversity and inclusion goals for the search. How can the role particularly enhance the team dynamics? So by aligning with those details early, you're going to avoid wasting time. You're going to create clarity for everyone involved to help you go to the market really more intentional when you're reaching out to candidates. But you don't have to stop there. Beyond that, a lot of organizations are shifting from traditional hiring methods focused on degrees, years of experience, job titles, to a skills-first approach. And the shift brings a lot of benefits. It enables teams to tap into a broader, more diverse talent pool while actually aligning hires with the actual demands of the role. So to kind of talk through what this looks like in practice, instead of sort of starting with a checklist of credentials, we ask a simple question, how can we find a person that can do the job and reframe it to focus on core technical skills, so what abilities are needed, for success on day one? What are the durable soft skills that are going to be needed? What are the problem-solving capabilities that they're going to need? How do they approach, challenge, and create solutions over time? And then growth potential. Are they ready to expand their impact over time? So during these meetings, we'll talk about, what does excellence look like in 6 months for candidates? What are some transferable skills? What skills are indispensable? And what complementary skills, since we're broadening the sort of pool, could actually strengthen the team? And so once that profile is clear, the next step is really identifying the right talent and how you can sort of leverage other things besides the sort of skills and experiences, similar industries, a lot of what Mina was talking about as well. And we think about 2 areas. One is career trigger moments, certain situations where candidates may be more receptive to new opportunities. Sometimes this will align with the search. Sometimes it'll maybe align with talent pipelining or building pipeline for candidates. Those career trigger moments could be around reorgs or layoffs at their company, negative press at their company, a recent acquisition, or leadership changes. So creating sort of alerts and looking for candidates in those areas, they may be more receptive to moving, and that may align well with your search. The other thing is this idea of concentric circles of talent. So for us, we will look at direct competitors in certain situations, right? Talents within the same industries and skill sets, the same sort of problems, same sort of ICP potentially, where there's some overlap. We'll look at adjacent industries, so candidates applying similar skills, maybe but in different fields that we think can transfer them. And then transferable skills, like I talked about earlier, individuals who can experience can adapt your needs. Maybe they're not in the exact type of role, but when you sort of break apart what this position does and what it entails, there's maybe 4 or 5 core skill sets and competencies, and you can identify other roles where that would be sort of transferable. The other thing to mention is not just doing a search based on job title, right? So we know that people are doing different things at different titles, and different companies have their own nomenclature. And so casting a wide net is really important. If you're looking for like a demand generation manager, for example, they might be called a growth marketer, a digital campaign strategist, performance marketing specialist. And so really casting a wide net with those sort of broad titles in tandem with the skills match and those other pieces will help you find the right candidates. When it comes to actually going out in outreach, we're really deliberate. Instead of blasting hundreds of people with generic messages, we use that tight candidate profile and create intentional focused campaigns. So our outreach process ensures or aims to ensure that we're not wasting candidates' time and we're not wasting our own times. For us, and this, again, it's not one size fits all, it may not work for everybody, but for us, we keep short, personalized messages. Quick introduction, mention the role, why their profile stood out, and we link right to the job posting. Our job posting has salary, benefits, hiring next steps, all of that is really laid out, and then a clear next step for that candidate to take action. So we really aim to streamline the candidate's experience and next steps by including an explicit call to action. It could be directly applying on a sort of unique link. It could be just booking time on a calendar, something like that, so they know if they want to take action. It's very clear, and we're not going back and forth on salary, benefits, on the process, on what they need to do. We also try to tailor narratives. So based on the candidate situation, for us, we're a 75-person startup right now. For candidates at larger companies, it's about their chance to make greater impact. For startup employees, it's not an opportunity for them to scale their experience and tell them sort of the journey that Pinpoint's going to go on over the next couple of years. For candidates in long-term roles, a new path to sort of expand your skills would be something we would talk through. In terms of a follow-up, again, this is not a one-size-fits-all, but for us, we will send one follow-up message after days, and that's pretty much it for us. However, we will identify our sort of top 10 to 15 prospective candidates in a search. So if we go and we look at maybe 30 profiles that look relevant, we will look for top 5, 10 that we think are an exact match for what we're looking for. And what I'll do with that, I will actually go in and get our hiring manager or maybe an executive involved in the follow-up. When you're working with these sort of top prospects that you think are a great match, sending a personal follow-up from someone outside of the recruiter sort of world, like a hiring manager or even executive on that team, can make a huge impact. It creates that stronger connection. When a senior leader personally reaches out, it humanizes the process. I think people can sometimes see a recruiter sending email and just not even respond, which is understandable to a certain extent. It also signals our commitment to them and that this is a serious message that we really do want to engage from them. It should increase the candidate's interest. So when a senior leader from the company reaches out, can increase their interest in the position in the company overall. Hearing from someone in any senior leadership role, the hiring manager, can help you stand out in a crowded field. It also can demonstrate that sort of company culture potentially on your company. When a hiring manager or executive takes the time to personally connect with a candidate, it sort of doubles down on that culture of transparency, openness, and collaboration. The other piece I just want to talk on broadly is on sourcing. You're going to get no's, of course, but don't just quickly, archive the message and move on. You will learn a lot from no in those early sourcing days. And those no's can be almost as valuable as yeses. You're going to learn a lot, like your salary misalignment, right? So if you're posting your salary and you're going to market and you have these profiles that are the right level of experience, and you're constantly getting no on the comp, you may know you have an issue there, and you should dive in to sort of find out if you need to sort of rescope your role there. If you have an unrealistic job posting, a no can signal that part of your job description or role expectations are maybe unrealistic. If you're asking for a wide skill set or trying to fill multiple roles in one and you're getting lots of no's and mismatches, that's also going to give you a signal to that. If candidates are maybe misunderstanding what your job description is, right, or they are responding with something that tells you that they're not really clear on the role, that's going to be immediate feedback that your job description may need some work. So take the time to understand why candidates are saying no. It can be time consuming to message them back. They likely may not respond back to you if they really aren't interested, but it's worth sort of double clicking to understand. Next piece, I just want to talk about championing DEI and sourcing. It is a great chance to help advance your DEI initiatives. For us, it's not just a nice to have, it's a business imperative. We know that teams that are more diverse outperform homogeneous teams, especially around innovation and problem solving. So in intake meetings, when we're talking about that profile, we're talking about what are the actual skills we need to find for this role. We're also going to talk about what perspectives are missing from the team, which voices aren't represented in decision making. How can different backgrounds enhance our problem solving? And this will help expand our approach and help us broaden the talent pool and really help align sourcing with our broader DEI initiatives. Last piece is just reporting and tracking. So we know what matters should be measured. And things like percentage of candidates hired is an important one, right? So you want to track actually who's successful and how far your sourcing efforts are going. Look at further stage reach by source candidates. So not only the number of candidates that are entering your process, but are they making it past that initial round, right? And if they are not, if they're all getting stuck at the initial round, there may be something wrong or off on your sourcing. Or if they are making it further along into the second, third, and even later stages and maybe hiring, that sort of proves that your method is working. Demographic information, of course, of source candidates, if you're aligning with those DEI goals, and then response rates and AD testing different messages. So sense checking and looking at and seeing what actually is working from a messaging standpoint will really be important. So just summarize, focus on skills first hiring is going to broaden your talent pool. It's going to align with your DE&I initiatives. Understand career motivations, not just requirements. It's going to help you be more strategic in sourcing. You want to time outreach strategically by identifying those career moments if you can. We prioritize quality over quantity in our outreach, and it's yielded great results. Keep messages short but meaningful, and know that you're building long-term relationships for long-term talent engagement, not only for that role, but potentially down the road, and also your company's reputation in the market. That's it for me.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. Looks like we've got a couple of questions. First from Fernando. Do you have any data on whether there is a higher conversion or response rate when hiring managers engage with top candidates?
That's a great question. It's been a smaller sample size. As I mentioned, for each role, I might ask a hiring manager to reach out to probably 10 people maximum or the executive on that team. And, it's a great question. I haven't actually looked at if that has increased the sort of response rate because the pool has been small, but it's absolutely a great call out and something that would be valuable to compare to see what the sort of lift is in open rate and response rate and if they enter the process. So it's a great call out.
Cool. Another one from Pulkit around skills-based hiring. So traditional hiring managers get quite fixated on minimum years of experience. How can you convince hiring managers to get around that?
Yeah, it's really difficult. It's a great call. It's a great challenge. So I think two things. One is ask explicit permission to spend 30 minutes of their time deconstructing what the years of experience mean to them. They want a product manager that has 5 years of experience. What does that signal? Break it down. And you're probably going to have to ask why, maybe 3 layers down to kind of figure it out. But then you'll be sort of left with a sort of core skill set and competency skill set. And then I will ask permission to say, let me bring you 10 profiles, whether you want to engage those candidates first and then bring sort of a scorecard to them, or just bring their like LinkedIn profiles to them. So, I'm gonna ask you an hour of your time to review these candidates. Let me go out. We've agreed on what the sort of skill sets we need are. Let me bring you these candidates that may not have 5 years of product manager experience in a B2B SaaS environment of a scaling company sub 200 people, right? Which is like a typical profile that a startup might look at. Let me bring you a candidate with these core skills, or a bunch of candidates. Let's sort of sense check that. And if there's a couple that are pretty successful and interesting, you start to build that credibility and prove that model, if that makes sense.
Awesome. Any more questions for Mike, please drop them in the chat and he will get back to you. We are going to move on to Matt and find out how we can make our time go further. Over to you, Matt.
Cool. Thank you, Joe. Hello, everybody. Nice to see lots of familiar faces in there. So last but not least, thank you, Mina and Mike. Those were awesome. So for those of you that don't know me, I've been in recruitment for 14 years. Long 14 years, plenty of grey hairs to show for it. As you can see there, niche markets have been my bread and butter, everything from data science through to financial systems and automated and multi-skilled engineering. And last year, I founded my own company, Tech Talent Delivery, which is a training consultancy which focuses on leveling up recruitment teams, sourcing and delivery skills. So today I am talking about time management and productivity, and the irony is not lost, Joe, in that I have 15 minutes. So I'm going to really try and practice what I preach here. These are the 3 topics I'm going to cover. So my goal is to kind of give you some actionable insights so that you can get the most and squeeze the most out of your sourcing sessions that you carry out. So starting off with structured sourcing processes. And I gave a talk on this in Amsterdam for the Sourcing Summit for those of you that were there. So this is a bit of a short snippet of what that included. But a structured sourcing process is a series of steps that we take in a particular order to achieve peak sourcing productivity. And there's 4 components that make up a structured sourcing process. So the first is a standardized sourcing workflow. So this is where you take all the elements of how you source, where you source, and you pull all of that information together from all of your different team, or maybe it's just yourself, and you map it out into a process flow, typically ordered from ease of access to the data, how straightforward it is to actually source on that platform or channel, and how much time it takes, starting from easiest and quickest through to the most difficult and most challenging. The second component then is having it stored in a central location. Now, I'm a massive fan of Notion for its flexibility, its UI, but you could easily save it in a Google Drive or OneDrive. But crucially, it's got to be saved in a location where you and your team can easily access the resources and information and add to it as time goes along. Thirdly, it comprises of leveraged technology and innovation. As Mike and Mina have talked about, obviously, we have a plethora of different AI, automation, other tech tools that are available. By mapping out our sourcing process, we can better evaluate different technology that we're currently using to understand what's adding value and what isn't, and also be better placed to actually identify new tools or gaps in our sourcing process that could be supported by bringing on new technology, whether that's a new ATS platform or maybe a note-taker annotation tool. The fourth and final component is then a continuous improvement and feedback loop. So this isn't something that you just do once and it's mapped forever. It's a continuously evolving resource for you and your team. So this will require periods of reflection. Usually I suggest every quarter or every 6 months you pull the team together, you look at what's working, what's not working, and the idea is that you bring in this continuous improvement culture within your company and your sourcing team to continually build upon your lessons and learning. So this is something that will evolve over many years, hopefully. So to give you all a little sneak peek, for each of my training clients I work with, I actually build them a structured sourcing process. And this is one of the early iterations that I created, which is built in Notion. You'll notice that in there, I've got various different structures and maps of the sourcing process from A to B. It's also where I store sourcing assets, which is what I'm going to be talking about shortly. But this is then shared with the clients and their whole teams for them to access, add upon, and develop. So if you're not sure about what tool to use, Notion's brilliant. It's free up to a certain point of sharing. Highly recommend it. And just to kind of talk a bit about the benefits. So I've been using structured sourcing processes and developing now in my last 3 jobs. And just to talk a bit about some of the impact that's had. So when I was in my last agency, Data Science Talent, we halved our time to shortlist and we increased our pass-through rates from CVs to interviews. So candidates being invited after being submitted. And we streamlined the onboarding of our new sources because we had a mapped process and also an accompanying training program. We could very quickly take a sourcer with little to no experience and turn them into a very, very competent sourcer in a very short space of time. At Meta, I sort of built upon it and was able to source over 300 new senior to principal machine learning engineers in under 5 months. Now, some of you might think, well, that's not too many, Matthew. I've sourced more than that. And that's fine. But actually in Meta, as I'm sure some of my ex-Meta mates, I can see Ash and a few others here will attest, we were competing against about 40 other sources just focused on machine learning. And there was a database of many thousands of machine learning engineers that had already been found. So using the sourcing process I developed, I was able to identify hundreds of new ones that hadn't already been found. And finally, earlier this year, I was engaged on a sourcing program and I was working alongside another sourcing team of 3. And despite them having a head start of a month on me, I was able to source more profiles than them and achieve the same number of offers in just under 4 months. So those are just 3 very brief overviews of the kind of results you can expect by having a structured sourcing process in place. Moving on, sourcing assets. So I define a sourcing asset as a resource that we create for our sourcing projects that we continue to add, that will continue to add value in future projects. So it's kind of a build once, get value from time and time again. And these will be things that you actually save into your structured sourcing process and into that central database I just talked about for your team to continue to get value from. To give you some examples about what a sourcing asset could be. So first off is a sourcing working doc. So for every new project that I work on, I will create a working doc where I contain all of my Boolean searches, my categories of keyword research in one place. Here's an example of one I built out for a machine learning project. And as you'll see, it has lots of different areas and Booleans related to specific parts of machine learning. I also use it to track different sources and channels about where I might find and headhunt new candidates. So here I was working on a project for multi-skilled engineers, and this allowed me to identify meetup groups, LinkedIn groups, other communities, trade associations, where I might be able to go and identify new profiles. And also, I use the sourcing working doc to change the Boolean depending on which platform I was using. So here's an example where, I'm looking for a sort of machine learning engineer, but I've created 3 different Booleans that correspond to the platform I'm posting it on. So for example, LinkedIn Recruiter, I've got my nice tidy filters, but in Google X-Ray, I don't have any filters. I've just got a search bar. So I've got to leverage the Boolean associated with that. And also with Seek Out, the field search operators differ slightly to what we have with LinkedIn Recruiter. So again, in this one document, I can have all of that information stored. One of the big benefits is that if I don't recruit a machine learning engineer for 6 months and then I pick up a new role, I don't have to start from scratch. I can find out my sourcing working doc and pick up from where I left off. It could also be a collaborative document that I've shared with colleagues to add to and build out this database of keyword research and sourcing research as well. A second example on the topic of AI and automation is actually saving my sourcing prompts. So here are 3 prompts that I've been developing and building upon, and I'll give you an example here. So this one I built out basically to help me expand on the synonyms and related keywords of an existing Boolean string that I'd created. And So I store my prompts in a tool, which I'm going to share with you shortly, but it's so I can recycle and use them again and again. Now, for those of you that are prompt experts, don't judge me too harshly. I am going to be doing some training on prompt engineering this month, but this prompt's worked pretty well for me on about several projects I've used it on so far. And the final sourcing asset, which is a bit more technical and a bit more advanced, but pays off a lot, is Google programmable search engines. Now, Google programmable search engines allow you to create your own Google search with specific rules that you can build in the back end. So you'll see here from the list, I've got a range of different custom search engines I've developed over the years that target certain websites or channels. And I can specify what sites I want to include in the back end. So for those of you familiar with X-Ray, you remember you have to put site : and then the name of the website and then write out your string. You don't have to do that with PSEs. You can just build in what sites you want it to search and which to exclude. So here I'm including ResearchGate profiles based on looking for scientific and researchers. I can also add in things like synonyms, so you can create your own synonyms in the back end. So here I've got a number of competitors that I want to search. I don't want to have to type out those competitors every single time. So I've allocated a search term. And now if I use the corresponding programmable search engine, I can just type out AI1, AI2, or AI3, and it'll automatically search for all of the keywords and synonyms related to my own term. This is what it looks like on the front end. So this is my ResearchGate custom search engine, and I've just searched for a machine learning researcher. You can see I've got 1900 results, but because I've set all the rules beforehand, all I'm getting back is candidate profiles. Now, because we're short on time today, if any of you are really interested in learning more about this, there's a terrific book that Irina Shamieva and David Gully have written, which is on screen, walks you through the entire process of building and setting up your own custom search engines. Would highly recommend. They take a lot of time to set up to begin with, but once they're built, they can be used time and time again. Plus, you get a public link that you can share with anybody, and they'll have access to the front end of the website. And actually, when I left Meta, I ended up creating about 2 or 3 recruiter job search custom search engines that I shared within the Meta community to help them find new jobs. So it's not just for finding candidates. You can use it for market research, for job hunting yourself. Loads of great use cases for it. So finally, I just wanted to share with you 3 sourcing tools and extensions that I've been using the heck out of over the last few months. So the first one is Perplexity, as we kind of alluded to with Mina. Like Mina said earlier, Perplexity I found is really good for talent insights and talent mapping. I do also have ChatGPT Pro, and Mina's exactly right. If you use Pro, it's also quite good at it. The nice thing with Perplexity is it gives more context behind the answers. So here I'm looking for senior full stack developers in Berlin, and I've asked it to give me some companies that I could potentially headhunt from. It's not just giving me one long list, but it's given me multiple subcategories based on what I've told it to search for. The other nice thing about Perplexity is it cites its sources based off where it's got that information. So here I've done a follow-up prompt simply asking for salary ranges in a table format, which it's given me. But you'll notice here that it's given me all of the sources about where it's gone and pulled that information from. So for those of you concerned about you don't know where the information's from, you want to make sure that the AI isn't hallucinating, Perplexity will give this to you. And actually with ChatGPT Pro, it also does now cite its sources as well, so you can go in and cross-reference that data. Hexblaze is the next tool. So this is a text expander tool. What a text expander tool does is it allows you to write out a load of text, and then you can actually assign a shortcut for it to then automatically paste that text into a website, a document, or anything. So here is a snippet of one of my Hexblaze accounts. As you can see, I've got various snippets built into it for outreach and also for sourcing prompts. And here's an example about what it looks like when you enter in a new snippet. So I've got the prompt itself saved in text blaze. I've then assigned a shortcut, which is /CHL. So now if I go into Perplexity, I just have to type /CHL and it will automatically fill out that prompt in it. And I can then do the same in ChatGPT, in Claude, in a number of others. So I don't have to have different templates set up elsewhere. I can just use this as a universal templated tool. So loads of use cases, but I found it particularly useful for saving prompts that have worked really well for me. The final tool is more for you technical recruiters and sources, or those of you that source in more technical markets, but this is a GitHub user search tool. Now, for those of you who don't have access to a very expensive sourcing platform like Seekout that searches GitHub, it's notoriously difficult to create Google X-ray searches of GitHub because GitHub has restricted the amount of data that can be indexed to Google. So you have to do a lot of crazy things with your string to try and uncover profiles. Thankfully, the team at BrainGain Software have created this tool, which is completely free. And this allows you to search user profiles. And it also has field operators and Boolean built into it as well. So this is an example search that I built where I was looking for candidates based in Rome who have experience with Python, and they mention machine learning somewhere on their bio or profile. And you'll notice that I get their name, their company name, where they're based, what their sort of bio description is, any external links to other social profiles, the number of followers that they've got, and then any email addresses that they have stored on the platform as well. And you'll also notice that you have the ability to export these lists to an Excel or CSV file, which you could then do more with. Like, for example, you could apply data enrichment platform to build out the information further. So for any of you technical sources out there, really, really beneficial. I'm sharing a full list of these resources for all of you. I've seen a few questions pop up about it. So Joe, I know, is going to share the slides with all of you after this anyway. You'll find the full list of resources in there. I've also created a free guide about how you can create and capture your own sourcing process. So go ahead and download that and help start capturing your sourcing process. But that's me done. Hopefully in time, Joe. Any questions at all?
We're doing good for time. I'm very surprised. Thanks, Matt. Throw your questions in, throw them in the chat because we can't unmute everyone. We've got a few in already. So how long did it take you to build the prompts? I think that was for the custom search, Matt.
Good question. So for some of the basic ones, it probably took me about sort of 10, 15 minutes. For those that I wanted to build in their own queries and search rules, it probably took me a bit longer than that, maybe about 20 minutes, half an hour, because there's lots of experimenting going into the custom search engine, tweaking it, and then sort of coming back to it as well. So depends on the website you're searching, but I'd say half an hour, sometimes a bit longer than that if it's a particularly complex build out that you're trying to do. But like I said, once you've built it once, it's there ready. The ones I did for Meta, for example, have got multiple ATS websites where I can scrape jobs from the like Lever, Ashby, Greenhouse posted jobs, and it pulls it all into the same search criteria. That probably took me about 40 minutes to build that. So it varies in short.
Got it. Another one, do you need the pro version of Perplexity?
No, so I don't pay for Perplexity. So that was just from the free version. I'm going to take the dive with Perplexity Pro in the new year, so I'll report back on how good I find it. I'm sure somebody else who's using it can speak to its differences. But I already pay for ChatGPT Pro, so not at the moment. That was the free version that I showed.
Got it. Everyone asking for the links and slides. We'll send it straight after the call.
Yeah.
This is an interesting one. Which prompts training are you planning on taking?
Oh, yeah. So I've got a bookmark of like 3 or 4 different courses. So whoever asked that, just ping me on LinkedIn. I'll share them with you. Once I've done them, I can give you a bit more actual feedback about how good they were. So if you want to wait for a month and then come back to me in January, I'll be able to give you a bit more of an honest answer.
Nice. Last one then. How did you find the responses from candidates on GitHub? Do you have an idea of how many people you reach out to that convert to active candidates?
It varies. I mean, the challenge with GitHub is the level of information that's present on their profile. Obviously, if you're able to find their email address, then the response rates go up enormously. My experience is that if you could email developers, or contact them with a direct, email or phone number, response rates were much higher than going through LinkedIn. Unfortunately, developers are some of the most reached out to people on the platform, and there's quite a lot of them that are kind of just ignoring LinkedIn outreach. So I always found that the response rates were quite good. You have to do a little bit more digging and sleuthing for those profiles that are lacking information. So looking for corresponding project names, usernames to try and uncover where they are. So it depends, but usually response rates are quite good. And if you feel confident enough, you can also reference something in their GitHub repo or projects, and that gives you that air of personalization that Mike was talking about that will help boost your response rates as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. We've got one more slide to wrap up from me. So as mentioned, all of the free resources, links, offers from all the presenters will be emailed to you within the next couple of hours. One more offer will be added to that from us at Purpl. We've never done any promotions since we launched. This is our first one. We're calling it Purpl Friday. Excuse the terrible pun. But it's £100 off our annual licenses. It's probably the cheapest they'll ever be. It's running for 7 days. As mentioned, that covers access to all of our courses. So sourcing mentors like the ones you've met today, but also stakeholder management, interviewing data. Over the course of 12 months, you'll probably get access to around 40, maybe 50 courses. So quite a lot of value, although I would say that I'm quite biased. If you've got any questions, I'll be around for the next 5 minutes on Purpl to answer those. You can also ask any of the mentors any questions if you haven't already. Or if not, everyone will get a few minutes back. Drop your messages in the chat if you don't mind. It's too hard for me to find with this many people on the call. Are we getting the recording? Yes. So the recording will take a little while to process. So I'm going to send out the resources today, and then tomorrow I'll send another email with the recording once we've processed it, uploaded it. I'll try and get rid of that horrible audio in the middle where someone didn't mute themselves. But yeah, that'll come tomorrow. Any other questions? No probs, no probs. Cool. Well, feel free to ping any of us directly. You've got my email. I'll send out everyone's LinkedIn link as well, so you can connect with everyone. Any more feedback, we'd love to hear it. Good, bad. It's our first one, so we'd love to know if we should do another one. If not, have a good rest of your day. Thanks, everyone.